A couple weeks ago, we had our Oscars going on, and I was really expecting Martin McDonagh to walk away with a screenplay Oscar because it's kind of his thing at this point.
That was kind of a little bit of surprise.
Yeah, and so for a film like Banshees of Inisherin to walk away empty-handed, I thought, let's go ahead and jump back in because people really enjoyed our episode on Seven Psychopaths. Let's talk another McDonagh film, and we ended up with some Billboards.
Yeah.
So join us today as we talk about the fictional town of Ebbing, Missouri, and their 3 billboards that cause a whole lot of problems. Welcome back to the show, everyone. I'm one of your hosts, Kyle Goethe from GoatFilmReviews.com.
Hi, everybody. I'm Nick from the St. Paul Filmcast. Thanks for finding us. Thanks for watching. And for our loyal fans, really, thanks for supporting us. You can follow us on Twitter and on Instagram. We do have a Patreon. Check that out for some great deals to tell us what movies we could review in the future. Both Kyle and I are members of the Minnesota Film Critics Alliance. Check out that webpage for critic reviews as well as ours. And today we're talking about a hit from 2017. Yeah.
So 3 billboards outside Ebbing, Missouri. Mildred Hayes, grieving over the death of her daughter Angela, rents 3 billboards near her home, questioning the local police's response to finding her killer. As tensions between Mildred and the authorities increase, the small town of Ebbing, Missouri seems set to boil over.
Okay, if I get it right, it's based on a true story, very loosely. So it was a situation that happened in Texas where they're looking for her daughter, and there was kind of a cold case, and she did these boards, paid for themselves.
So I believe it was Kathy Page, who was allegedly murdered by... The people who put up the billboard said that it was her husband, Stephen Page. Now, I don't know a lot of details about the case, but this happened in Vidor, Texas.
Oh, yeah, Texas.
Which is actually someplace that Martin McDonagh was riding through on a bus, and he couldn't remember what state he was in, but he remembered seeing these billboards up top that were, he said, what I saw mostly was the rage that was in these giant reminders that you still have not solved this case.
Yeah.
And what it sounded like to me was that it seemed like the case was pretty cut and dry in Texas as to what should have been done, and it hadn't been done. And even at the time I was reading this article about the real case, at the time of the publication of that article, nothing had still been done. So it is kind of one of those areas where, the art imitates life and really takes on the visage of something horrible and an interesting story around it.
So, yeah, after Seven Psychopaths and I believe another film, Martin got a reputation of hiring really good good actors, and not a really good ensemble of actors.
Yeah, and this one's unique because it doesn't, it has Sam Rockwell, who he worked with in Seven Psychopaths.
Yeah.
But other than that, I don't know that there's any recurring actors from his previous work in this film. First time with Woody Harrelson, he was able to write the role of Mildred with Frances McDormand in mind, and she almost didn't take the role until her husband Joel Coen said, "Shut up, you're taking the role. Like, there's no way you're not doing this."
If a Coen brother says you need to,
he's like, "I gave you your life in film." So it's a case where he wrote the screenplay with her in mind. I can't think of anything that he would have done with Woody Harrelson at that point.
Rounded out with Peter Dinklage.
And Peter Dinklage, who at this point was season 7 of Game of Thrones, I believe. So it was kind of like he was still in peak Peter Dinklage time on that show. So
and then who plays Francis's ex-husband? He was in Deadwood.
Oh, John Hawkes, yeah.
John Hawkes, who gets, perfect supporting. I think Woody Harrelson, I know he can headline movies.
Yeah.
I think he fits better when he's not the headline marker. I think when he's doing supporting like this.
Yeah. Because he certainly starts out as one of the leads. I guess Woody Harrelson is very much a co-lead.
He has
at the
that name power, but I think he works in this kind of format, kind of like what he did for Triangle of Sadness. Yeah. And then you have somebody like John Hawkes, who it's hard for him to carry a headline of movie, but for him to pepper him in makes it even better.
Yeah, when you see him on things like Deadwood, where he's in almost every episode, but he's he is a nice spice to add to the stew.
Right.
I think his run on Lost is fantastic. He was in the final season of that show. He was in a great miniseries in 2001 called Taken, which was about alien abductions, and he was phenomenal in that miniseries. So he's always added power in every single film, but unfortunately, general audiences don't know his name and probably don't recognize him.
I know. In Deadwood, he's a softie, right? Yeah. He's not going to pull a gun on anybody. He just wants to make a living. He's a softie. But here in this movie, you're like, oh my God, you're an abuser.
Yeah.
You're dumb. It's like he could do things And it's like, wow, I thought you're going to be a soft person. I didn't know you're going to be like this kind of a person character.
Yeah, the only time I see him more hard-edged, I think, is probably in Winter's Bone, which I believe he was nominated for Best Supporting Actor with Jennifer Lawrence back in '09. But even that film is not... It was a Best Picture nominee, I think, but it wasn't really generally watched by a lot of people either.
No, it's getting its wheels now. People are going back and like, I think we missed...
It's nice when someone becomes famous off a movie because then you can
Winterbone.
eventually go back to it.
Yeah, check out Winterbone. It's a good movie.
Yeah.
So I think Ebbing, Three Billboards, what I think hurts it a little bit is the title. It's a little bit long.
It is, but it's in my mind I found it to be very catchy and like interesting, I guess. Is that I don't know if general audiences maybe felt the same way, but the movie made a lot of money. Actually, made like 160 million on like a 12 million.
Well, I remember when I went to see it in December because it was like a late December.
They definitely knew that this was a Best Picture quality film. I think, and that's
the theater was packed.
For.
Like when I went to see Parasite.
Yeah, and I think it's generally considered a higher point after Seven Psychopaths. I think it's a good movie. I think Seven Psychopaths is his weakest film, and so to come off of that with something like Three Billboards, I do think is a step in the right direction. It's a unique film because most of his films really embrace the Irishness of his background, and this is a very Americana film, so it kind of stands aside.
And usually he starts very intimate with his movies, like Three Banshees and this one. It's not a grand ensemble, boom, we're in the movie. He likes to start maybe like just two characters interconnecting. It's almost like a soft, like he almost likes to soft you into the story, and then by the second act you're fully invested.
Yeah.
Usually his first act is very much soft play.
He's kind of the master of microaggression. Like,
right, yeah.
Everything starts off with, like, this movie literally starts off with her renting 3 billboards and putting signs up. And, like, we get 10, 15 minutes in, I think, before you even see what's on them. But it's just, like, this tiny little thing of, like, what is the purpose of this story? And as it starts to build, it's like, okay. And then we see it steadily building, and people start, exacting these violent or semi-violent acts upon each other, and it just builds and builds.
And then also he's very clever at not out loudish comedy, but makes it so it is humorous at times.
Yeah.
With her, did you go see the dentist? No.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. Where do you think I did that? Yeah. Did you? Yeah. Or I'm dating Peter Dinklage just to be outrageous, but then she realized she actually likes the guy.
Yeah, but she can't get over her own bullcrap, Yeah. And she goes out on a date with him because he's willing to get her off the hook for a violent act. Like I like that everything in the film. The term that I'd seen online for that I really like was reverse karmic, in that it's all about these characters who are committing acts against one another, and their response to it is something kind almost. It's like attacking the evil with kindness. When she finds out that her husband burned the billboards down, and she brings the bottle of wine over to them, and all these like things where Woody Harrelson. Right. Basically, like the last few weeks of his life in the film are so stressed because of like not being able to actually commit to his job, and then he pays for her billboards
rather than shouting at her. Right? He goes, "I don't think that's fair."
Yeah.
Well, you're not doing your job. I don't think it's fair. But then you have Sam Rockwell, his character is kind of layered because his character thinks he's something that he's not. But then peel back the layer, then you fear he's a racist too.
Yeah.
And he has to overcome those terms, but you understand where he gets the racism from his parents.
It's one of those cases of you understand why he's the way he is, but it doesn't make him okay.
Right,
Yeah. We have a lot, and characters, we need to have characters like that, because there are people that you can understand why they are the way they are and still not respect them or like them. And I think he does that in such a way where, even at the end of the film, I don't like Sam Rockwell's character. I understand him more, and I see like growth in him.
Hopefully something enough. Like, we get a little bit of a lightning at the end. Yeah. I can do something heroic. Martin does something clever. It's almost like when we see The Elephant Man with David Lynch. Everything important seems to be elevated. They metaphorically too, like the police station looks down on the street and everything. Or the signs, or Frances McDormand's house is up here so she can see everybody coming up to her. And I don't know if that's intentional or recognized, but a lot of important events happen elevated. I mean, even Sam Rockwell's house is his parents' house is almost elevated. Just based on the terrain, I don't know, but it seems an interesting point to visually present that. Anything important happening, you always have this elevation, even when you look up at the billboards.
Yeah, and maybe that is part of the billboard because it is something that's usually high up that's looking down on you. you know. But it is interesting that you point that out because you can't literally have everyone high up,
No.
or else it's just flatland at that point.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that it seems almost intentional now that you point it out, because it does seem like, again, if everyone is high up looking down, then there is no down. Everything is just level. So it's got to be almost intentional.
But from a writing, just storytelling perspective, it's interesting point of view of anything important significance has from an elevated perspective.
Yeah.
And so it did get some accolades if you haven't written it
Yeah,
down.
it won for Best Actress for McDormand. It won for Best Supporting Actor for Rockwell, which I think was a big deal at the time that he had kind of avoided this critical acclaim for so long, and he finally had received it there. But it was also nominated for Best Picture, Best Supporting Actor for Harrelson. That's 2 supporting actor noms. Best Original Score, Best Original Screenplay, and Best Editing. It also currently holds a distinction on IMDb. It is the number 165 highest rated film on IMDb.
Okay.
So it is still very well regarded amidst general movie-going audiences.
Well, because I think it's not. I don't know why it didn't get what did it lose to original writing, but I do think Martin.
I believe it lost to Get Out, if I'm correct.
It could be.
I think this was the year of Get Out.
Yeah. Gosh, yeah, it is. But Martin, I think, understands now, especially when you see Banshees, what his style is, and it's almost like this. Everything is going to happen under a foreboding, and then almost like it's not going to be. There's going to be a resolution, but not really a happy resolution.
Yeah, he's kind of the embodiment of that meme with the dog in the burning house drinking his coffee and saying, "This is fine." Like,
right? That's
it's
Martin's,
the world is ending all around us, but let's not look at that for now. Let's focus on this. We're kind of avoiding the pain, because In Bruges is all about that. I mean, we have our characters that are, basically on the lam, or like resting up after something goes awry on a job. Seven Psychopaths is all about writer's block and literally devolves into this giant mess of violence.
Yes.
Banshees of Inisherin is literally as small as, I don't want to hang out with this person anymore. And
you
now
have nowhere to go. You're isolated.
We're stuck on this island together anyway.
Yeah. Like, what are we going to do when you're talking to anybody?
Yeah.
But I think Martin's perfect at that. I think he figured out what he likes.
Mm-hmm.
It's this overcast of the world is discombobulated. And okay. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, and even his Oscar-nominated short film Six Shooter kind of has that too. I mean, it's a very small film. It's Brendan Gleeson on a train, just kind of riding around, but it does have that sense of foreboding, pain yet to come.
Yeah, with a little bit of comedy.
No, yeah, he always sprinkles it in a little bit, and it's kind of that uncomfortable comedy.
Oh, yeah.
Like you're laughing, but you're not sure you should be.
Yeah. So, up next, of course, is our review of 3 Billboards. I haven't seen it since 2017.
Yeah, I haven't seen it since the theater.
It's very interesting how it's the illusion how slow it looks like it's going.
Yeah.
Like, let's pick up the pace, but it's a lot of content. You have to pay attention to a lot of the details. He does this in Banshees too.
Yeah, this film in Banshees, you feel the length, but not in a bad way. You're on a journey. It feels like a novelist kind of approach.
Right. It's almost like you feel like this is not based on a book. Right.
Yeah. I felt like there's a frenetic speed to Seven Psychopaths, and to a certain extent, In Bruges is a movie that before you watch it feels like it's going to be slow because it sounds boring. And then you watch it, and it's pretty quick on the clip. It seems like with 3 Billboards and Banshees, he's slowing himself down more. He's finding his pacing. This feels like the playwright, Martin McDonagh. I've read a few of his other plays. I studied them in college. This feels like the playwright, Martin McDonagh.
Yeah, because you got your acts, and like you said, he leaves you with the soft intro. You think, what is so important? What's the dynamic there? It doesn't give you punched with the music or anything. He doesn't like Kurosawa. We get this action out of the way to settle down. He doesn't do it that way. We get these soft little intros to start the movie. Maybe like 2 characters talking. Yeah. Which is kind of natural. I think he feels natural like that. I don't know if he writes to an ending, or he has an ending in mind and let's get there. It feels like he writes to an ending.
I think he feels like there's an emotional or mental ending that he wants to get to, but less of a plot ending. Because this film and Banshees both don't really have plot endings. They kind of have character endings.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that's important to his work, is that the characters might be changed, but even so, the story isn't usually done at the end of the film. It's just, this is a good enough spot for us to leave.
Right. And I think he works constantly hard on dialogue. I think he probably works more on dialogue than anything else.
Yeah.
And especially when you write script instead of novels, because novels you're sitting just describing trees.
Yeah.
And here, with a movie, you can write dialogue, and you don't have to describe the room very much. And I think that's what he practices more, is what we need to say, how we need to say it, and why we need to say it this way.
Yeah.
And not to mention, where is the exaggeration? Of course, in here is the billboards are the driving force, the visual driving force to start the conversation, everybody interacting.
Yeah, big red damn billboards, like really noticeable even in darkness. And then I like that she peppers, them with like flowers around them, as if like, it's this like giant ugly eyesore of a reminder that your daughter has been horribly killed, and then we're just going to put some flowers here. She visits with the deer that comes up. Like, there's like peaceful moments around these giant reminders of pain.
Yeah. So it's always like a spark starts the whole thing going, a small little spark.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just the billboards, and Banshees is, I just don't want to hang out with you anymore.
Yeah.
Well, why? Why don't you deal with it? I just don't want to hang out with you anymore. It's a divorce.
Yeah.
So at least these, maybe a line of dialogue or something like that. It's just a little spark to this is a big feature movie.
Yeah.
Right. I think he knows his style. He knows knows where he's naturally going to go. And I think this is what, it's just like the start of what he wants to do.
And he also understands too, like when a surprise is in store, because there's a number of really, really excellent twists to the narrative. And they all play into his theme, basically, of human beings would rather exact their vengeance on microaggression than on actually like doing what's right. I mean, the police officers have had these billboards up for how long throughout the narrative, but they instead choose to go after Mildred and say, please take them down, when you could spend that energy trying to figure out the answer. And even even
he's right. Yeah.
James Dixon's character, James Dixon, also like Mason Dixon, James Dixon, played by Sam Rockwell, doesn't realize until the end of the film how simple he could be supporting her, how he could be helping find what's going on. He has to lose his job for him to care about it.
It's that analogy of when I work with like kids, of I don't know, you spend almost time complaining how to get out of not doing the work.
Yep.
And by the time you constantly complain, you can be finished now.
Yep. It's the classic version of today's spending 2 hours looking on Netflix for a movie instead of just watching any damn thing.
Right. You spend more time looking at the menu of what I want rather than you just pick a movie and go and see what.
Yep.
Yeah.
I also wanted to point out, I thought it was very funny. I found this great article from back in 2017 by David Fear.
Okay.
That basically analyzed the characters from the film and their relationship and interviewed a few people about it. And what I really found captivating was how Frances McDormand looked at Mildred, and during her interactions with Martin, she looked at Mildred as a John Wayne-ish kind of a character, and that's how she was going to portray her character, was very like standoffish, kind of like buffed up on the outside, like but pain on the inside. And what I found fascinating was when Sam Rockwell found out about that, he said, "I'm going to be Lee Marvin then. I'm going to be the antithesis, the person who pisses her off." And he said, it was all about Liberty Valance for me. I was going to like really upplay that. And when you look at the film in that viewpoint, you compare the interactions between the characters, it's actually it's a pretty great way to reassess both narratives.
Right, I like that. Sam Rockwell doing Lee Marvin and John Wayne.
Yeah. And it's just nice to see that, again, like, it's not a remake of that, but the character interactions, there's a lot that's taken from that, and it's nice to see a film that can take what came before and utilize it and do something different with it.
Right. So, do you agree with us? Put a comment down below. Do you want to see us more do Martin McDonagh movies?
Yeah.
I think there's quite a few still left.
Well, let's go. There's 4 feature films from Martin McDonagh. Why don't you rank them below, or rank the ones you have seen? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Which one's your favorite? Which one is your least favorite? There's not that many, so it's easier to rank them. So, let us know down in the comment section what your favorite and least favorite Martin McDonagh film are. We'd love to speak with you about them. We love talking with the fans, especially about films that we both enjoyed. So, definitely. Thank you guys for joining us. You can always find my film reviews over at goatfilmreviews.com.
Hey, you can find my show, the St. Paul Filmcast, anywhere you find podcasts, and I can't afford to advertise on a billboard.
I can't afford one even.